What happens to your HSA when you pass away? I'm Sean Mullaney, financial planner. Let's discuss. All right, health savings accounts. I love them. They're great accounts. There's tax deductions on the way in, tax-free growth while the money's sitting in there, and assuming the money is used for qualified medical expenses or to reimburse previously incurred qualified medical expenses, the money is tax-free when it comes out. What's not to love? Well, it gets a little tricky when you're filling out the beneficiary designation form for your HSA. Who would you leave it to upon your death? There's some interesting rules that come into play that don't apply to any other type of account. First off, your spouse is always a favored HSA beneficiary. Generally speaking, I recommend leaving any HSA to your spouse. Why? Because upon your death, the HSA becomes your spouse's HSA. And he or she can use the HSA just like any old HSA, and they don't pay tax on it. So that's great. Spouses are great primary beneficiaries for an HSA. What about if you leave it to somebody who's not your spouse? Well, it gets a little tricky. So if you leave your HSA to a non-spouse, that's perfectly permissible. But here's the rub. That person pays income tax on the amount in the HSA in the year of your death. So if you leave your HSA, let's say it's worth $10,000 to your brother and you die, your brother gets that $10,000, no problem, but that $10,000 becomes taxable income to them in the year of your death. So it's taxed at their highest marginal rate. Ouch, that's a little rough. What could we do to sort of minimize the tax impact of that? What we could do is, if we're charitably inclined, you could contact your HSA custodian and say, hey, I want to leave my HSA to a charity upon my death. The advantage of that is the charity doesn't pay tax. So the charity doesn't care if it inherits $10,000 from your Roth IRA, from your taxable brokerage, from your traditional IRA, or from an HSA. And if the HSA is going to be immediately taxable to your other loved ones, perhaps that's the asset you leave to charity and leave your other loved ones a Roth IRA, taxable brokerage, traditional IRA, those kind of assets where the tax bite can be managed, or maybe there is none because it's in a Roth IRA. Those are better assets to leave to non-spouse loved ones than HSAs. If you're charitably inclined, there's a way out of that tax. It's leaving the HSA to the charity and then perhaps leaving other assets to non-charitable beneficiaries. This is Sean Mullaney. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.